gift, right? That can either encourage or discourage. And here's one of the reasons why, right? Um, uh, Everything that is under our control is something that can be faked. Right? So this is one of the reasons why laughter is so important, right? And things that are not under our control, because it's very hard to fake them. But if I thought that so this is like this, right? If I thought that everything was under the control of my beloved's will, then I would think that just what he does or she does is not something that I can always trust, right? Because they can take it or give it at will. But if it's necessitated, if it's not under the control of their will, then that could be. So that's another tension in the notion of giving, which is right, remember this actually goes back almost to the blue-footed booby, right? It's not under, what will hook you? What will demand that you focus on? What will require you to do this thinking and being with the other person? That's not something that you can stop at will, and it's not something you can auto-generate either. You can't just do it if you want to. It may not be possible. Right? Yeah, so that's another important dimension. This maybe giving is the wrong thing. Let me give one example of a kind of model that I think is very useful to have in mind, and one that has come to dominate romance. So if we think about weepies, right, we also have to think about bodice rippers. I'm sure you've all spent hours reading these things. Harlequin romances are huge. They used to be sold in hundreds of thousands, millions of copies, and new ones were generated every month. And they told essentially the same story. A beautiful young woman falls in love with a daredevil man who rips her bodice, right? and she feels assaulted, but then love begins in the very act of her being taken by force, right? So it's a whole set. You can see how politically incorrect these things are. But here's a new one. So now instead of Harlequin romances, you can Google this. If you want Black Cat books, and these are mostly what we would think of as S&M books. These are sadomasochistic novels. 50 Shades of Grey, which has sold more copies than the Harry Potter books.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can. Yeah, I know. What kind of a world do we live in? Actually, I prepared a course on 50 Shades of Grey.
I'm sure that went through.
That would have been great.
Well, no, it's because it's a fascinating, because the plot structure is fascinating, right? Even though the writing itself is really pretty awful. But the plot structure is fascinating because it's about how love transforms the guy who can't really feel love. Then he finally, what does he want? He wants to get married and have children. And so it's a great, it starts with male power, but that's just nothing compared to the female power that's generated. So it's got some interesting dimensions to it. But look, in sadomasochism, what you have is, part you have the notion of the contract, or sometimes this is called BDSM, but the discipline in sadomasochism. So the thought is this, right? In a sadomasochistic relationship, as in 50 Shades of Grey, the dominant, the master, and the slave enter into a contractual relation. They go through a list of things that they're willing to do and have happen, and they have a safe word, right? If it gets too much, you say this and I stop. So it's all scripted. And the part of Love's Confusion is about sadomasochism, we'll get to it, but I just want to, here's a good example, right? That's as if, that's the safest kind of relationship to have. Why? Well, you know exactly what you're getting into, or more or less, and if you don't like the part that you get into that you don't know about, you've got a way out. There is a clear sort of sense of all the numbers are written in, the check is filled out. You're not going to get into any territory what you don't want to get into. This is a case where what you give to the other is actually written into the contract as if you're going to build them a house or sell them a car. You say, I give myself to you to do these things to me. You give yourself to me to have these things happen, and nothing else will happen. That's it. Right? I'll tie you up and whip you, but I'll only whip you a certain amount, or until you tell me to stop, or that's a completely different sort of image of what we might be doing. Lots of people have advocated that we take lessons from the BDSM community, right? And we think far more about our regular courtship habits and everything else as contractual things. You actually upfront negotiate what it is you're going to do. And in place of the marriage contract, we put in an enforceable, marriage contracts are not enforceable. You put in a contract that is enforceable. I will cook your dinner, you will provide the paycheck, I will bear the children, you will do that, I will, you will. And now when you don't do it, I take you to court and I say, well, he said he would do the dishes and he never does them, right? So, right, the contract, you might even put in a set of fines, right? If you don't do the dishes, you pay a. You might think, what are we doing when we think this way? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to cut you off.
No.
But I think one thing that we're doing is kind of a dangerous part of it is that we're like suspending seduction and saying that like.
That we're what?
Suspending seduction. We're like completely.
Well, we're replacing it.
Right.
Because seduction actually involves the writing of blank checks, right? You don't know what you're getting into. It's not explicit.
Yeah, and psychologically, the thing with seduction is that like the other person is convincing you, and like you are being kind of led into something that you didn't know that you wanted. Whereas with a contract, you can only like write into a contract what you do know.
Well, and not just that. You can have safe words. You can have exit strategies. So if we get into territory that I'm not now clear about, I want to have a clear exit strategy from those. So if I say this word, everything stops, right? So that's another way in which we deal with the unknown, right? We think, I'm willing to take, look, I recognize something like this. There are places that I don't know about that I might really like to go. And if I like going there, I'm happy to go there. But if it turns out I don't like them, I don't want to have to stay there. So this is my thought about heaven. I'm happy to go there, but I want an exit strategy just in case I don't like it, right? So but here's the thought that I have. I think that actually the connection between bodice rippers, clear romance novels, as they were called, romance novels, and the Black Cat books on the 50 Shades of Grey. These are all versions of sentimentality. They're not, you might be surprised to think that people, putting on leather suits and whipping each other in a dungeon is a form of, but if you think about it the way that I've been advocating, you see that it is, because actually the contract makes explicit the closed nature. Right. Moreover, all the scenes are scripted. They're all completely routine. You can get a book of the scenes, right, and see what they are. The imagination, the erotic imagination in BDSM is not what I would describe as overwhelmingly exciting. The number of things, there are only a certain number of things that anybody can do with their bodies, and they tend to get written down in these kinds of playbooks. And there's nothing essentially wrong with that. There's a lot that could be very good about that picture, right? But there's also something that's very bad about it, it seems to me, which is that it suggests there's a way to kind of negotiate the risks of life and to escape from them somehow cost-free, right? You won't get it. Nothing you don't want to happen will happen. Everything will be okay. Things will go well. And you think, you can't really make that a model of our love relations, in part because we have no idea most of the time what it is we're investing in these relations. We don't know what love will demand of us, so we can't, write a good contract. Well, let's stop at that moment, and let me just